Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel. My name is Hannah and I love to do all sorts of DIY projects and sewing projects. And this week I actually want to tackle this fabric here that I got in Berlin the last time that I was visiting some family there. So I went to this market close to Maybachufer, so if you're ever in Berlin I can highly recommend this. And I came across one seller who had this amazing selection of these tapestry inspired fabrics, and I completely fell in love with this one. I think simply because it very much reminds me of William Morris meets fantasy meets magical fairy garden, and I just love the colors. I love the leaf design and the flowers. I think it is so pretty, but unfortunately I just had a very small piece. So the piece that I got was 50 centimeters by I think 120, so not that much. I couldn't make a whole garment out of it, so I asked you guys in my community tab of ideas what I could make with this, and thank you so much to everyone who replied. It's always so fun to see your suggestions and ideas. And I finally decided to make a jacket with this, and sort of have this panel be my accent back panel, but also maybe have some other pieces like the pockets or the sleeves in this fabric. For the pattern, I'm actually going to be using the Paola jacket pattern. I've used that one quite a lot on my channel, I have to say. So for example, my tapestry inspired jacket where I did a lot of appliques, that pattern was also the Paola jacket, and I have a lot of denim fabric left over from this, so I'm hoping that I can use some of this fabric for my current jacket. And then I also transformed the thrifted curtain from Sweden into this jacket, and I just love the pattern. I love the fit, I know my measurements, and yeah, it's become one of my favorite patterns. So I am currently figuring out which fabric I should use for the jacket, and I still have this black denim fabric here, and I laid it out and it fits but barely. So this is kind of all I have, but it would work for the front part of the jacket as well as the sleeves, and then I could do the back panel in my colorful fabric, and then I think I can squeeze in some of the smaller pieces up here. So like the collar and everything. I think that could work. And I have decided to go with this black denim fabric simply because my colorful fairy fabric basically has a black backing, and I think this matches the colors quite well overall. I also tried this other like bluish denim here that I had left over from a pair of pants, but I think the colors just clash because the leaves of my fabric sort of lean very bluish anyways, and I think having a black is a much better contrast. And as you can see, overall my fabric is way too short for my pattern piece, so I need to sort of add a little top part here to sort of elongate the back panel. So I am now piecing my back panel together, and I decided to mark my notches with some pins simply because the fabric is so busy and it's very hard to see my tailor's chalk. And then I have my upper back panel right here. And this will be going on top. And I've already marked where they are going to meet. And now I'm just cutting away like the overlap. And then I can pin everything in place, and that way I can make sure that my panel here has the correct length. And now I will also serge the edges here, and then I can connect my panel pieces together. So I do have several ribbons that I'm kind of thinking of trying out to sort of add more details, or maybe even add them to the sleeve or something. Yeah, so I'm just figuring out what I like. I have quite a few of them. I kind of like having a little gold accent somewhere because it picks up on these colors here, and it's like gold yellow. Okay, I had a hard time deciding, but I think I'm gonna add the little black trim, and then I'm gonna add this yellow gold trim on top. So it's been a couple of days. Yeah, I've been away quite a lot, but I decided to bring my project with me, and I decided to embroider the part of the sleeve here and sort of recreate the flower design and the vines that are on the other fabric. And my idea was that sort of the vines run down the sleeve like this. And I try to use very similar colors, so I use this like almost bluish green, like very light blue green, and then the dark reds as well as the pinks, and then some golden yellow accents as well. And I really like how that turned out. I had a lot of time on the train. It was a nice way to pass some time, but I only did one sleeve so far because embroidering takes such a long time. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'm done with the design, but I'm gonna leave it for now and start on the second sleeve, because otherwise I will never get done. And maybe I can add more flowers or more vines down the line. But yeah, that is sort of the rough idea. And as you can see with this fabric here, I think I matched the colors quite well. So for my design, I just started sketching out my leaf shapes and my vines using some pencil. That always works for me quite well, and this is something that you can easily wash out later. And I just use a very basic embroidery stitch, and I have all these different shades of greens or like these turquoise green colors that worked for me quite well. So I've just done my middle vine and then all of the leaves. I mean, it is just 3 leaves, and then I've marked my different flowers. For the bottom here, I want to add 3 little flowers of each color, so this like blush pink and then a darker red as well. Then for the middle here, I will have 1 bigger flower, and then up here I will have 2 medium-sized flowers. So for my little flowers, I decided to do 3 of each color because I think that adds a nice contrast. So this is the blush pink, and then this is like the dark red that I'm gonna use. And I will start with the dark red, and I just mark the center point where I will stick stitch through, so that is the center of my flower. And then I'm trying to create a loop like this, which sort of is like the flower petal. I come up here and then I will try to stitch very closely to where I first stitched, like this. But I make sure to not pull my thread completely through, but instead I'm holding it just so that I have the desired length of my flower petal. And then I come up on the highest point of the petal, so I'm sort of stitching here and grabbing the flower petal like this, and then I can basically loop my thread around here and stitch it down. And I find that sometimes with some threads it pulls my flower petal very narrow, so that's why I sometimes like to add a few more stitches on the sides to sort of lock down my petal, to give it a bit more shape, like this. My flower will have 4 petals, so I just repeat that 4 times. I've just done my little flowers, and now I'm just going back in with some yellow and just add a little bit of accent. So yeah, I'm just doing 1 stitch per flower petal, just like this. And this just creates more dimension. And of course you could add as many colors as you like. Okay, so now I just want to show you how I do the little knots here, or like the center of the flower. I'm just gonna go through the center of one of my flowers, and then I will wrap my thread around my needle. I will loop it around. I think I usually do like 5 times or something like that. And then you basically have these wrapped around your needle, and then you punch through the center of the flower again, like this. And that way you sort of stitch down your little knot. So for my medium-sized flower here, I'm actually going to be repeating the same process as I did with these flowers here. So I'm still creating the loop and then stitching that down, but now my loop is actually doubled. So as you can see, this is much more yarn, and also here on my finished piece you can see this is quite a lot of yarn. And then I'm also adding the French knots down here, and then some teeny tiny accents of this bright yellow. And then I'm not doing a full flower, but instead I'm doing basically a flower that still needs to bloom. So I've completed 2 of the 3 flower patches that I want to do, and now I'm doing the last one. So this will be just one big one where I have a lot of these like pinkish accents. And yeah, I just drew out the shape, and honestly there's not really a strategy or pattern or anything for that. I'm just gonna start tracing, and I'm trying to do like long stitches, but yeah, this is sort of the next thing that I do. And afterwards I need to connect my flowers to the main vine here, so I'm just using some leftover green embroidery thread, and I'm also going to be adding more details to the leaves here with also other green colors. And for the pockets I cut out 2 pieces. These are more or less identical. I had a hard time picking out a piece, honestly, because I didn't want to cut apart the rest of my fabric, because I think I would like to make a pillow out of the rest. So yeah, this is just like 2 pieces from the leftover fabric, and they don't have any flower design in them, simply because otherwise I would have a lot of waste. So that is the idea for the pockets. Obviously I still need to fold over the edges, but that's how they would look like. And I really like the leaf design on here. I think that looks quite cute. And now I just need to serge all the edges, and then I can also fold over my edges here and then stitch down the pocket. So it is the next day, and I'm just picking out a few buttons that I could use for the jacket. I have some gold ones or some silver ones, but I'm not super happy with all of the colors, honestly. The gold is quite like bright yellow, and then the silver is also very bright. Almost feels a little bit cheap, even though these are like proper measure buttons. And then I also have these flower ones, which are also silver, but I really like the flower design, and I think it kind of picks up on the flower design of the jacket, or like the back panel of the jacket. And then I decided to also add some pocket flaps to my front pocket, and I think that looks quite nice. And after that I just attached everything and did the buttons, and then my jacket was basically done. And I just wanted to say thank you to everyone who comments, likes or subscribes. That really helps me out, and it's so much fun reading all of your comments and ideas, also on my community posts. And yeah, thank you for being here. And now it's time to show you the reveal.